It arrived on a Monday. A cream-colored envelope tucked into my mailbox, elegant script scrawled across the front, "The Bennett Family Reunion, June 14th, 2 p.m. Everyone got one. Except me. I only found out when Aunt Diane posted a photo of the invitation on Facebook. "Can't wait to see everyone," she'd captioned, not knowing, or maybe not caring, that I hadn't been invited. I stared at that picture for a full minute, heart lodged somewhere between my ribs. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe mine got lost in the mail. But when I called Mom, her voice was sharp and practiced, like she'd rehearsed it. "Oh, Emma," she said. "We just thought it might be complicated. You know, with everything that happened last year." "What happened last year?" I took a breath. "You mean when I told the truth?" She sighed. "You made things difficult for your sister, that's all. And it's her turn to host. She wanted it small. Just close family." I almost laughed. Close family. I was her sister too. But I didn't say anything. Just hung up. I should have cried. I should have felt something. But instead, I walked over to the corner of my room where a dusty box sat unopened for months. I pulled out the folder marked Legal 2024 and flipped to the page I had printed the day after I discovered what Lily had done. Because this wasn't about a party. This was about the lie they all agreed to tell, and the one I refused to stay silent about. Last year, Lily borrowed $50,000 from our parents' retirement account to cover a failed investment. Except she didn't tell them. She forged Dad's signature, transferred the funds, and lost every cent within 2 months. I found out when the bank called me. Dad had listed me as a secondary contact in case anything ever happened to him. I was the responsible one, the just-in-case daughter. That call? It was my first clue that Lily had gambled more than just their savings, she had gambled with their trust. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to give her a chance. A way out. "Just tell them," I begged one night over coffee. "We can fix it. But you have to be honest." She stirred her latte like it was nothing. "Why would I do that? They'd never believe you over me. You've always been the dramatic one." She smiled then, soft and sweet. The kind of smile that could ruin a reputation with a whisper. "You tell them," she said, "and you'll lose them. All of them." I told them anyway. And she was right. They didn't believe me. They said I was jealous. Said I'd always had a problem with Lily's success. That I was trying to tear the family apart with baseless accusations. I brought them the bank statements. The forged forms. They glanced once, then slid them back across the table like it was poison. "Family protects family," Mom whispered. And just like that, I was out. After that, I vanished. Not dramatically. No slammed doors, no shouting match. I just stopped showing up. No texts. No birthday wishes. No calls when Mom had her surgery or when Dad turned 70. I stayed quiet, like they'd always preferred me to be. Only this time, I wasn't waiting for an invitation back. I poured my energy into work. Took on extra hours. Launched my own consulting business and named it Vesper, Latin for Evening Star. A quiet tribute to who I used to be. The girl who waited until everyone else had eaten to finally take a seat at the table. The business grew faster than I expected. Clients referred other clients. My apartment turned into a tiny empire of spreadsheets and signed contracts. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt powerful. But power doesn't erase pain. Every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of them online. Lily smiling in a new dress, our parents clapping at her charity gala. She made a show of being generous now. Giving back, they said. No one ever mentioned where the money had come from. And still, no one asked where I'd gone. Until that envelope didn't arrive. And suddenly, I wasn't just gone. I was erased. It started with a photo. A week after I saw Aunt Diane's post, another one surfaced, this time from Lily. A group shot from the reunion. My entire family lined up in front of the lake house, everyone in white linen and soft pastels, arms wrapped around each other like a portrait from a glossy magazine. And there, in the middle, stood my mother, holding Lily's hand, wearing the necklace I gave her 3 birthdays ago. She had said she didn't like gold, that it was too showy. But there she was, smiling in it like it was a family heirloom. The caption read, "Grateful for the people who matter most." I stared at it for a long time, then zoomed in. Not on her. On the background. There was a tree to the left. Just behind the group. The same tree where I buried a tiny glass box when I was 13. A time capsule. I had filled it with letters to myself, dreams, fears, even a note that said one day I'll matter. I'd drawn a heart around those words, just to remind myself that even if no one else loved me the way I needed, I would try to love myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. My body was still, but my mind wouldn't stop. I thought about that girl. 13, scared, hopeful. Writing to a future that might never arrive. And I thought about now, about what I had built in silence. About how I had learned to grow things without sunlight, how I had bloomed in the shadow of people who never thought I'd survive, let alone thrive. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to remember. And then, I was going to let them remember me. Not as the quiet daughter. Not as the one who disappeared. But as the woman they tried to forget. 3 days later, I walked into the courthouse with a manila envelope. Inside, every document I had collected over the past year. The signed bank withdrawal. The financial record tied to the retirement account. Screenshots of Lily's text messages, where she had accidentally bragged to a friend about fixing things before Mom and Dad noticed. I didn't file anything that day. I just sat on the bench outside the records office, flipping through the pages. Reading every line. Letting the truth sink into my bones, not the betrayal, not the rejection, but the cold, quiet fact that I had always been the only one telling the truth. And it wasn't just about the money. It was about the silence after. The way they pretended nothing had happened. The way they clung to the version of Lily that made them feel successful, and discarded the version of me that made them feel ashamed. Because I saw them clearly. Because I made it without them. And that truth scared them more than any accusation ever could. That weekend, I visited the lake house. Not to confront anyone. Just to find the tree. The driveway was empty. The house locked up. But the tree was still there, taller now, branches stretching like open arms. I stood beneath it, digging with my hands, until the edge of the glass box revealed itself through the soil. It was still intact. I pulled it free, wiped it clean. Opened it. The letters were faded but legible. My handwriting had changed, but not my heart. There, in shaky pencil, were the words, "One day I'll matter." I laughed. Softly. And whispered, "You do." I placed a new note inside the box. One written in pen, in steady, adult handwriting. It read, "I did matter. And I always will. Even if they never say it out loud." I buried the box again. And left. But not before snapping a photo of the spot. That night, I uploaded the photo to my personal business blog. I didn't name names. I didn't point fingers. I just told a story. About a girl who once thought being invisible was a permanent condition. And a woman who learned that invisibility can be a power, if you learn to use it. The post went viral in 24 hours. Thousands of comments. Messages from strangers who saw themselves in every word. People who had been forgotten. Overlooked. Dismissed. and yet had quietly built lives worth remembering. Lily saw the post too. I know because she texted me. 3 words, was that necessary? I didn't reply. Because it wasn't for her. It was for every person who had ever been handed a fold-out chair by the trash can and still learned to sit with grace. The next day, my parents called. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I no longer needed their version of love. And because forgiveness, real forgiveness, sometimes starts with a boundary, not a reunion. The voicemail was 37 seconds long. Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom. We saw your blog. It surprised us. We didn't know you felt that way. If you'd just talked to us, if you hadn't gone public, maybe this wouldn't have gotten so dramatic. She paused. A breath. Then her voice dropped to that familiar tone, the one she used whenever she wanted me to clean up a mess I didn't make. Lily is very upset. This could affect her work. You need to think about the consequences before sharing things that make the family look bad. That was the part that stung. Not once did she say she was sorry. Not once did she say she believed me. I didn't save the message. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Because I already knew how it would end, with me being asked to protect the very people who had let me drown in silence. That night, I made tea. Sat by the window. Watched the city lights blink like quiet confessions. And I asked myself the question I had avoided for too long. What does closure look like when no one says they're sorry? The answer came softly. It looks like peace. Peace that doesn't wait for apologies. Peace that chooses stillness over spectacle. So I turned my phone off. Not out of anger. But because I finally could. A week later, the ripple from my blog post reached farther than I expected. An editor from a podcast reached out. She said my words struck a nerve, especially with women who had been cut out of families, not by violence or scandal, but by something quieter. Something like shame wrapped in a smile. She asked if I'd share more. I said yes. Not because I wanted attention. But because I had something to say. And this time, people were listening. The episode aired 3 weeks later. It was called The Fold-Out Chair. I told the story, not of the betrayal itself, but of the strength that came after. I spoke about silence. About being erased. And about the power of finally seeing yourself clearly, even if no one else ever does. And somewhere in the middle of recording, I realized something. I didn't miss them. Not really. I missed the idea of them. The version of my family that never existed, the one I used to pretend might one day show up and say all the right things. That family wasn't real. But I was. And I was finally telling my story. The morning the episode aired, Lily tagged me in a comment. It said, maybe try healing in private next time? I didn't respond. But I smiled. Because healing in private was exactly what I had been doing for the last year. She just didn't like that it finally showed. It arrived by mail. A cream envelope with gold lettering, the same kind they used for weddings and awards. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's loops and curls, always a little too perfect. Inside was a card. You are cordially invited to celebrate Lily's promotion to regional director. Family and close friends only. At the bottom, we hope this can be a step toward healing. Healing. That word again. Used like a bomb, as if it could cover the gaping hole they'd left in me. As if this invitation, this afterthought wrapped in a Hallmark script, wasn't just another reminder that they wanted me quiet, not whole. I set the card down on my desk, staring at it for a long time. It wasn't an apology. It was PR. They wanted to fix the optics. The silence after the podcast had grown awkward, even for them. Friends asking questions. Extended relatives sending me quiet messages of support. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted reputation control. So I did what I had always done. I didn't argue. I didn't respond. But I did RSVP. Just not in the way they expected. That Saturday, I sent flowers. Not cheap ones. Stunning ones. Orchids and white roses in a crystal vase, elegant and heavy. With a note. Congratulations, Lily. Wishing you the spotlight you worked so hard to protect. No signature. No name. Just enough. Enough to remind them that I saw them, clearly, fully, and that I would no longer be part of their game. I heard through a cousin that the flowers arrived just before the toast. That Lily read the note out loud. That my mother's face turned pale. They knew it was from me. They also knew I wasn't coming. Not to this celebration. Not to any more staged moments where I was expected to clap while they clinked glasses. That night, I lit a candle. Poured a glass of wine. And toasted myself. For walking away. For staying silent when silence meant power. And for finally understanding that love isn't proven by how much pain you tolerate. Sometimes, love is saying no. Even when it shakes. Especially when it shakes. 2 months passed. The noise faded. The messages slowed. And then came the email. Subject line, regarding grandmother Helen's estate. It was from a lawyer. One I didn't recognize. Apparently, my grandmother, the one who once told me I was too sensitive for family business and too ambitious for a husband, had passed quietly the week before. No funeral, no memorial. Just a legal distribution of assets. And somehow, despite everything, she had left me something. The attached PDF was simple. An old townhouse on Willow Street. A faded deed, dated 1976. A short note, typed and impersonal, to Emma, for reasons I imagine you now understand. That was it. Not love. Not regret. Just acknowledgement. But it hit me harder than any apology they could have mustered. Because she had seen it too, the undercurrent of cruelty dressed as order, the way family loyalty was wielded like a leash. And for once, someone had quietly broken the pattern. I visited the house the next morning. It was small, 2 stories, shutters barely holding on. But the foundation was strong. Kind of like me. I stood in the empty living room, sun filtering through dust-speckled glass, and realized something strange. This place was mine. Not earned through approval. Not granted by forgiveness. Given. Quietly. Without strings. A small, stubborn offering from the one woman who never said she was sorry, but in the end, maybe said enough. Later that week, my mother called again. I let it ring. Then listened to the voicemail. Your grandmother left you the house? That doesn't make any sense. She barely even liked you. I don't know what you said to her, but this is unexpected. Lily's hurt. We're all confused. Maybe we should talk. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just sat on the floor of that empty house and whispered to no one at all. You see me now, don't you? I spent the next few weeks slowly fixing up the townhouse. Not with hired help. With my own hands. I scrubbed the floors, painted the walls, patched up the window frames. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to leave my mark on something that was finally mine. No one else's name on the deed. No one else's opinion on where the couch should go. And when it was done, I hosted an open house, not to sell it, but to show it. I invited the people who had been there for me when my own family vanished. Old friends. Colleagues. A few clients who had become something more like chosen family. We filled the little living room with warmth. Music. Food. Laughter that didn't have to be forced. No one asked me about Lily. No one asked why there was no family photo on the mantel. They didn't need to. They understood. A few days after the open house, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Lily. It was a single sheet of paper. Crisp, smooth. Her words were neat, like always. You've made your point. We get it, you've moved on, you've built your little life. But don't forget, family is forever. You can't rewrite history just because it doesn't flatter you. At some point, you'll regret cutting ties. We're still here. But don't expect the door to stay open forever. I read it twice. Then again. Then folded it neatly and slid it into the back of my desk drawer. Not because I needed to keep it. But because I wanted the reminder. That sometimes, even when you win quietly, the people you've outgrown will try one last time to shrink you back to their size. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the door she mentioned? It wasn't locked. I had taken it off its hinges long ago. And built a wall in its place. Not to trap myself inside. But to keep the peace in. Thanksgiving came. The kind of holiday that used to mean performative smiles, dry turkey, and polite silence stretched over a table like a tablecloth hiding cracks in the wood. This year, I spent it differently. I made pumpkin soup from scratch. Lit candles. Played old jazz records that crackled with warmth. My guests were 3 people, a friend from grad school, her partner, and a neighbor I'd helped when her roof leaked. None of them shared my blood. But every one of them made me feel seen. We passed dishes, told stories, laughed without measuring our words. And somewhere between the second helping of cornbread and the cinnamon tea, it hit me, this was the first Thanksgiving I had ever truly enjoyed. Because there was no pretending. No tension simmering under the surface. No invisible place card with my name scratched out. Just peace. Just presence. Just people who didn't love me in theory, but in action. Later that night, I got a group text from Lily. A photo of the family table. The usual setup. Everyone smiling. My seat at the end conspicuously empty. The caption read, "Missing one, but we still carry on." No one said my name. But the message was clear. They wanted me to feel loss. But the only thing I felt was gratitude. Because for the first time, I hadn't spent the day trying to earn a place I already knew I would never be given. I didn't reply to the message. I just posted a picture of my own table. 3 plates. Candlelight. A warm pie in the center. No caption. No context. But anyone who saw it would know. I wasn't missing anything. I was finally full. Winter came softly. Snow settled on the windowsill of the Willow Street townhouse like an exhale. I'd decorated modestly, just a wreath on the door, a strand of lights around the porch railing. Peace didn't need sparkle. It just needed space. On New Year's Eve, I stood in my living room with a cup of tea, watching fireworks bloom in the distance. Each burst of light reminded me of the noise I'd left behind, the chaos of needing to be loved by people who only knew how to control. I used to think silence was punishment. That not being invited, not being seen, was the worst kind of pain. But now? Now silence was power. The power of choosing who gets a seat at my table. The power of building something sacred with hands that had once only been used to serve others. The power of becoming the version of myself I was always too scared to imagine. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A single message. From Mom. "We miss you. Come home." I stared at the screen, the same way I used to stare at that girl in the mirror. The one who waited, hoped, bent herself into silence just to belong. But I didn't miss them. Not anymore. I missed who I used to be. And I loved who I had become more. So I powered off my phone. Turned off the lights. And whispered to the night, like a prayer only I needed to hear. I am already home.